Okay, good work. I fail confirm to everybody, and we're up to Chaf Gimel on the base. Chaf Gimel on the base. About 7 lines to the bottom. We said that Rabbi Shimon Elazar Oimer Kol Klian Puria Chayiv Lahachris. Any Klian Puria you'll be chayiv to call out. Now, what is a Klian Puria? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kalim Chadashim Shaloi Sevasan Ayin. That's Kalim. That's, did I say Chayiv Lahachris? I think it's the opposite. Kol Klian Puria ain't Chayiv Lahachris. Excuse me. A Klian Puria you will not be chayiv to call out. Now, why? Because you don't have it long enough to have a recognition. If you have something long enough, you recognize it's yours. Something you don't have that long, you don't recognize it's yours. Hechidami, space simin. If there's a simin in it, kiloi svasan ayin my hava. If it has a simin, who cares? Once you have a simin, you don't have to get used to it. Looking at it, either less boost simin, and if you don't have a simin, kisavasan ayin my have it. In other words, where does Svias Ayin come into play? Miman of Shach. To go ahead and return something, it would depend upon whether you have a siman or not. So Fred the Gemara, like, what's the Svias Ayin? What is this? Right? What exactly is Svias Ayin? What exactly is it? In other words, if you have a siman or you don't have a siman. And even a siman, we spoke out that is the chiddush, the simani deraisa or not. So we want to know what's the din. My hobby says the Gemara. I'll tell you what the din is. Nafkamina would be right. La'olam delesbu siman. You don't have a siman, but nafkamina lahadure litzurme rabbanon b'tfias eina. We had this on Daf Yomi that a Talmud Chacham is believed even without a siman if he tells you it's his because he knows it's his because there's no siman, but he knows by looking at it, it's his. There's no siman, but he just knows it's his. That's the nafkamina, right? Sivasan ayin kimlu begavayu umadrinale. If he had it for a while and he recognizes it, then we'll return it to him. Kiloi sivasan ayin, but he does not have it for a while, and therefore it's totally new, and he doesn't have literally the lashon is sivasan satiated by the eye, like kimlu begavayu umadrinale. Okay, so that's what it means. Kli on Puria would be the following. It's a new Kli that doesn't have a siman, and since it's new, he can't possibly have what? Recognition of it, because it's new. But if it's in his house a while, even if he doesn't have a siman, a Surban Rabbanah, a Talmud Chacham, we return it. Right? And now the Gemara says something interesting. Dam Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Bahani Klas Mili, Avidi Rabbanan, de Meshana Malayu. These three things Rabbanan are permitted to go ahead and stretch the truth, not tell the truth. What are they? The Mesechta, Ube Puria, Ube Shpiza. Okay, we'll go back and explain this in a second. My nafkamina, Amra Zosha, Ladur Le'avedasa B'Tfias Eina. If you know this person, the Loi Meshana, Ela Bahani Tlas, that he will stretch the truth in those three things, in Mesechta, in Puria, and Ushpiza, in those three things, then you will believe him by Tfesena. But if he lies in other things, not just those three, you won't return it to him. Okay, so what exactly are these three things? So Rashi tells us, the Mesechta, it means that if you ask him a certain Mesechta, if he knows it, he's able to tell you, no, I don't. Let's see Taisus, Mesechta. Then Taimar, Rama Vishinantam. What does Vishinamtam means? You should learn them. But it's a very funny lashon, Vishinamtam. Divrei Torah mechudodim bepicha. The lashon of Shinantam, it should be sharp. Like it should be sharp. So Taisus a kasha that meaning that if a person asks you something, Shem Yishalcha Adam al Tegangem v'Toimaloi, you shouldn't go ahead and stammer and tell him, Elohim Elohim Miyad. So what's Mishad? The guy asks you if you know Masechta, you tell him you don't know it. Torah is supposed to be Shinam V'Necha. It's supposed to be so clear and you're able to give it out so quickly. If a person's come to ask you a din or a psak, right, then you should be clear in your mouth and say it, or to learn. If he wants to test you in Yodea. In other words, this person's asking you, Masechta. He's just asking you, do you know it? And he wants to test you. What daf is this on? What daf is that on? You can tell him I don't know it. You don't have to go ahead. If he comes to tell you a psak, ask a psak or a shaila, then it has to be v'shinamtam b'chud b'pif. So the person over here, the Masechta, is simply saying what he wants to test you. What's oishpiza? What's oishpiza? That this I'm skipping Puya for a second. Ushpiza means that if a guy asks you if it's the guy, where you stayed, it's a good place to stay, and you're not supposed to tell him it's a good place to stay. You're saying lashon hara. Both Rashi and Taisa speak out. It's speaking about not a nice fellow who would take advantage. If you tell him that this place is a good place to stay, he's going to go ahead and take an advantage and chapa Ryan. Look at Rashi on the top of Chav Daled and Aleph. B'shpiza, shalu al shpiza in kiblu b'seva panim yafos. They'll ask you, makabel you with a good countenance. V'amallah, lav mi the toivihi. Kadesh le'yikbetzu boy b'nei adam sheinu muganim. That people shouldn't jump, people who are einam muganim, not fine people. Love a tamar they love. V'yichalu es memoyim. We're not speaking about an inn. We're speaking about a person who's noted for hachnas orchim. So if you're going to tell him it's a good place to go, you're going to have all these people take advantage of him, and it's going to end up costing him all his money. So therefore, he's able to say that it's not such a good place. So he can be mishana his mesechta, he can be mishana what in his shpiza. What about Purya? So Rashi says, if a person asks you, mishamash mitasa, if you had marital relations, Taisa says that's not what it means. People don't ask you that, but people ask you, why didn't you come to yeshiva? Now it could be you were Balkari, and therefore you had a mission, and therefore we saw Ezra's takana, so therefore you didn't come, and that's why. So you're able to go ahead and say you were sick. So the Purya means bed, guys. Purya means bed, right? So you say Purya bed, then what? Then you're able to mishana and say, well, I was sick. Now here's what I wanted to get Rabbi Avi excited about. It's this marsha. Says the marsha, Bipurya, Pirish Rashi v'Toisvis, Oidesh Leima Alpi Mashakasa Perakam in the Megillah. The Chayiv Adam the Besume Bipurya, a person's Chayiv the Besume to get drunk Bipurya on Purim ad lo yada until you don't know the difference between Or Haman uBaruch Mordechai. Avidi Rabbana the Mishan and Leima ad lo yada, they can change and say, really, we don't know the difference. Gamim hu eino mavusim kol kach v'yada, even if they're not so drunk. They're able to go ahead and lie and say they're drunk. Now, I knew Rabbi Avi is going to love this.
Where is that, Lace? Where is that?
That's the Marsha on this Gemara. The Marsha on this Gemara. The blog's got to take this. Purya on Purim, guys. It's Purim.
Beautiful.
It's the Bat Gemara we had. So he learns Bipurya. The Marsha says that it's very interesting. I told this to my son Yitzi. He said his kids are learning Elam Mitzias, his kid, and he said this is the pshat the Rebbe told him because you don't want to get into the other stuff. These are fifth graders. We're going to get into the marital relations and different things. They learned this as the lichatchila dik pshat. They learned this as the lichatchila dik pshat. What are the chances, huh? Oh, Yavi, worth waiting for? Worth waiting for. Okay, very geschmack. Okay, back in the Gemara. So the reason why these three things, so if you know they don't change in these three things and they don't change in any other thing, you can believe them. Their word is so precious and so squeaky clean. The only three things they'll lie about or stretch the truth, let's say, are these three things. But when it comes to a kli, to go ahead and return a kli to them, you would return it. Masha Enkain, if on the other hand, they would go ahead and change in other things, so you wouldn't trust them regarding the kli. That's the nafkamina, but about kli and purya. Says the Gemara, Mazucha Chasida Agniv le Chassid de Kaspa. Mazucha Chasida was stolen from him a silver cup. Meushpiza. It wasn't his silver cup, it was the innkeeper's silver cup. Chaziluhu bar Beirav, he saw this young Talmud, the Moshe Yadeh, he washed his hands, the Nogiv Biglim de Chavre, and he wiped it on the tunic of his friend. Omar Hainu Hai, that's the Ganif. He doesn't care whatsoever about the money of his friend. So Kafte, they tied the guy up. Besdin, they used to have guys a little, has to be say, applied psychology. They wouldn't fool around. They tied the guy up. They're going to beat the guy to a pulp, and he admitted the truth that he in fact had stolen it. Tanya, okay, umoida, that vav is very, very, very important. Umoida Reb Shimon ben Elazar b'kelim chadashim. Now, Reb Shimon ben Elazar is the one who said kli an purya, you don't return, right? You wouldn't return it, but he's moida by kelim chadashim shesavasana ayin that you are used to seeing shechayev lahachos. You would be chayev. Okay, Tosfos points out it's mashma the chachamim hold that even if it's kelim chadashim, even if it's not seveya ayin, you would return to a talmid chacham. Tosfos points out to a talmid chacham you would even return the kli. He's believed. Here's a kelim chadashim that you would not return. Sheina chayev lahachos, that you're not chayev to call out. In other words, these are kelim that you were not seveya, but you're not chayev to call out. Kigoin badei machtin. Badei we're going to see is where you would hang needles with sinairos or thimbles, umachuzos, shel kadumois, very small things. Kolei l'shamru, with all these little things, you would it wouldn't be chayiv to call out. Ein chayiv lahapis, you would not be chayiv to call out because a person doesn't have any sphere sign in it. That's only if you find them one at a time. If you find two at a time, then you would be required to call it out. My bade, what does bade mean? It means shuchi, means a branch. My korele bade is david de tali beimidi, like a branch, like you hang something, like things hang from a branch, right? Like you have fruit hangs from a branch, bats hang from branches, right? And Midi says the Midi bar the koribei kiyahudan. The tali bay midi bad koribei. Anything that you go ahead and hang from is called a bad. Kiyahudan hasam. We learn in Masech the Sukkah. Allah echa bebad echad. One leaf on what? On one bad. So bad is a branch. If you save something from a lion, and a dive from a bear, min a nemer is a leopard, min a bardalis is a big shiloh what it is. For the overflowings of the sea and the river, or you find something in a major thoroughfare, it's all yours. Okay, now here's the shiloh, and this is going to take us through most of the rest of the daf. What's the reason the guys are miyayish? What's the majority of the people? The majority of people goyim, majority of people Jews. When does a person miyayish? When is a person not miyayish? So a series of questions, and then the Gemara will go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of them. So it gets a little bit long. Try to halt cup. Ki kam Reb Shimon ben Elazar that if you find it in a major thoroughfare, you have Hariel Shaloi is Broiv Kananim. The majority is Sini Goyim. So therefore, you could say that it fell from a guy. Or if you lost it, and a guy picked it up. Aval Beroiv Yisrael. If the majority of city are Jews, no. Why? Because you're not going to give up hope. You're going to say maybe a Jew found it, and a Jew is going to call it out. Or perhaps I feel Nami Omar that even what Roiv Yisrael, even when you have what Roiv Yisrael, perhaps that's where Reb Shimon ben Elazar says his din. Even Roiv Yisrael, he says about Hariel Shaloi. Now, what would the svara be, guys? What would the svara be by Rav Yisrael? If the majority of Jews, why would be Harshel Shaloi? Says the Shita Mekubeses, Shemishayish Lefi Shetoila Sheyakhu Sheinum Huganim. Even though the question is, if the city is majority of Jews, fellas, why would you not be chayiv to call it out? The majority, you assume you go after Rav that a Jew picked it up. Says the Shita, what you're worried about is the person who picked him up is Tosfos says it, that it's not a reliable guy. And another opinion is that even if you're going to say it's Rav Yisrael, but there are still plenty of goyim. In other words, When you say you have 10,000 Jews in the city, so you're a roiv, you have 9,000 goyim. So why you have a roiv, you have roiv Jews, correct? But you still have a multitude of goyim. So therefore, the svar, that's another svar. So two svaras. One is that maybe the Jew who picked it up is not a fine fellow. Therefore, what you'll give up hope. Or two, that maybe the person who picked it up was a guy, right? Okay, those are two possibilities over here. So for the first shaila, is Reb Shimon Elazar speaking Rav Canaanim or Rav Jews? But even Rav Jews, maybe not. And Imtim Sulaima, even if you're going to say Imtim Sulaima, even if you're going to say I feel about Yisrael Nami Amar that Hariel Shaloi, Pligi Rabban Aleha, did the Chachamim argue? I like Pligi, or they don't argue. Good. So again, did he say his din only by Rav Goyim, but Rav Yisrael not? Or maybe he even said by din by Rav Yisrael. And if he did say his din by Rav Yisrael, that Hariel Shaloi, do the Chachamim argue on that din? Imtim Sulaima Pligi b'Rav Yisrael, Vadai Pligi, right? B'Rav Canaanim Pligi, I like Pligi. Imtim Sulaima Pligi, I feel b'Rav Canaanim, halacha k'maisai, halacha k'maisai. Imtim Sulaima halacha k'maisai, dafka b'Rav Canaanim, I feel b'Rav Yisrael. Okay, you can go back to Tashma. Hamaitzi ma'ois b'bati k'nisias b'bati midrashiyas. You find money in a base knesses and a base medrash. Now we assume who's found in a base knesses and a base medrash? A Jew. Base Knesset is a place where they daven, base medrash where they learn, right? So now, now, man sham elei da'azal basaruba, who tells us that we go after Roiv, right? Rabbi Shimon Elazar, shmami na, afilu b'Rav Yisrael nami. L'chari could be paisha the shaila that he said his din afilu b'Rav Yisrael because a base medrash and a base Knesset, it says Harei Shaloi. Who's found in the base medrash? Who's found in the base Knesset? Obviously a Jew, and nonetheless he's saying Harei Shaloi. So let's be paisha the shaila. He said his din not only b'Rav Goyim, afilu Rav Yisrael. He said Harei Shaloi. Says, "Where you have no raya? We're speaking where there's no simon. Speaking there's no simon. Again, those who are speaking where there's a simon. If there's no simon, right? Even Rav Yisrael by no simon, guys, it's not going to help. My area makam sharab mitzuyim sham. Afilu ein rab mitzuyim sham. In other words, if it's speaking fuzarim, why do you care about the rabbim? In other words, fellas, if you're going into the rabbim, it must be that the concern is who's going to pick it up. But innately, it itself is returnable. Because if it's not, who cares about where it's found? If something has a simon, then it would be a difference where I lost it. My daughter, unfortunately, she lost a ring. She was in the hospital, she lost a ring. She was miyayish totally. Why? Not because she doesn't have a simon in the ring, but in the hospital, who's going to pick it up? Correct? Now, if you're telling me that it's speaking where it doesn't have a simon, then who cares where it is? You can't get it back anyway. So that's the Gemara's kasha. You let's be paisha the shaila that Rabbi Shimon Elazar said is din by Rav Canaan, by Rabbi Yisrael. Says Gemara, no, it's speaking, it doesn't have a simon. Fred the Gemara, if it doesn't have a simon, why you don't the Rabbi Shimon Elazar is speaking about in the base Knesset, in the base Medrash, which is a din in what? In people. If it's a din in people, and obviously it has a simon, because the concern is people, not the object. That's the upslug on. So therefore, it must be said as din barov Yisrael. It's speaking. There is a simon. The money. It's tied. The money is tziburin. That's speaking about a base knesses of a guy. It's speaking about base knesses where you'll find goyim. Base knesses that you'll find goyim. Okay. Rashi says, "Asifas mokim shemiskansim sham lisyayitz lisvayit." You ever see this? The Knights of Columbus, they have places there. These are gathering places. So they have the meetings, the lodge. The meetings of the lodge. They have the lodge. Says the Gemara. Okay, but the midrashia is my ikalamema. What are you going to say about a base medrash? Again, guys, Rav Shimon Elazar said, "But the knesiyos is but the midrashos." So good, you could tell me, but the knesiyos is speaking about a gathering place of goyim, and therefore you didn't say it's din by Rav Yisrael. What are you going to say by base medrash? There's no goyim in the base medrash. Says somewhere, but the midrash is the done. The yasibu kananim. It's our base medrash. However, there are Kananim there. Rashi says, Shin Chutz La'ir, Umashivim Ba Kanan Lishmar. In other words, the base medrash is outside the city, and they have security guards. They have security. So you're wondering that. So in other words, there are goyim there that possibly could pick it up. Says now you're telling me about the security guards. Kinesias Nami Didon, the Yasim Kananim. The base Knesset also can be speaking about a Jewish base Knesset, not necessarily the Knights of Columbus. We're speaking about a base Knesset with Jews, and you have security, you have goyim. But the bottom line is, you can't be Paishit the Shaila that he said is din by Rav Yisrael. Tashma, another attempt. Matzah ba'aveda, we find out in Veda. In Rav Yisrael, Chayav lahachris. In Rav Kananim, Ein Chayav lahachris. Man Shamlei the Amalina Basaruba, Rav Shimon Elazar. Shmami no, ki kam Rav Shimon Elazar, Rav Kananim. Rav Yisrael loy. Right? Guys, what does it say? It says openly, right? You find in Aveda, if a majority of Jews, it's Chayav lahachris. If you have to call it out. If it's majority of Goyim, then what? Then Hariel Shaloi. So the assumption is, who's the Tana of this obscure brisa? It's a Shimon ben Elazar. So let's be poishit to Shaila that Shimon ben Elazar only said his din, but Rav Kananim, not like the first lashon Rav Yisrael. Rav Kananim. What's the answer? Maybe it's not Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Hamani Rabbanan. It's right. So it's the Rabbanan. We have also Shaila is Rabbanan Moedet to Rav Shimon Elazar. So then, therefore, Tif Shemina, the Moedele Rabbanan Shimon Elazar B'Rav Kananim, that was one of your Shilas. So let's be poished that is Moedele B'Rav Kananim, because it says the Hariel Shaloi. Elaloi Lam Rav Shimon Elazar he, V'afil B'Rav Yisrael Nami, right? Even though Yisrael Nami also what? Also Hariel Shaloi. Why does it say Chayav L'Hachriz? V'Hacham Hayaskinan B'Tamon. It's speaking where the thing was hidden. So since it's hidden, it's not an Aveda. Good. So if you have a majority of Jews and it's Taman, then you call it out. The Gemara eat Taman Maya Vidate Gabe. What's he doing it? If it's Taman, just leave it there. But Tanan, Matzah Kliba Ashba Mechusa. If you find something in the garbage that's covered up, La Yigaba, right? Megula Naitul Machris. So why are you taking it? So again, you want to be Paishit the Shaila that Rabbi Shimon Elazar must only say is the Rav Kananim. We're saying no, it's not Rabbi Shimon Elazar, it's the Chachamim. So it's the Chachamim. What's our Shaila? They're moida by that moida Rabbi Shimon Elazar Rav Kananim. So no, you're right, it's Shimon Elazar. Oh, it's Rabbi Shimon Elazar and it says Rav Yisrael, you have to call it out. Says the Gemara, no, Rav Yisrael, you don't have to call it out. So why are you calling it out? Because it was Tamun. Fred the Gemara was Taman, why are you touching it? We have a Mishnah that we're going to see, Bez Hashem, that if something is covered, leave it there. Leave it there. What are you touching it for? Says, I'll tell you why you're touching it. It's a garbage dump that is what usually kept as a garbage dump. It's not cleaned up. So it's a place where you could hide something. And they changed their mind. So therefore, you better pick it up because or else it's going to be lost. So the bottom line is, it's speaking about the Shimon Elazar and it's speaking about something that was Tamin, but Einochinami, if it was what? It was out in the loose, he would say Rav Yisrael also could be that Hariel Shalai. You could say it's the Chachamim and it's not Tamun, and you still can be pushed to the Shaila that they're moida to Rav Shimon B'Rav Kananim. Why not? Mi ketonim hari hein shaloi. It doesn't say it's his. Ein chayiv lachachris ketoni. You're not chayiv to call it out. V'yaniach v'yaisi Yisrael v'yov besim no v'shakol. You're not chayiv lachachris. Leave it, hold it. You don't have to call it out. And if a Jew comes along and goes ahead and gives a simin, then you'll take it. But in Achanami, it could be that they're not moida. Rav Shimon Elazar would say hari shaloi. They would say that no, you keep it until a Jew comes along and calls it out. Tashma Dam Ravasi Matzah Chavi Yisayim Be'er Sharuba Kananim. If you find a barrel of wine in a city that are majority of Kananim, Muteres Mishum Metzia, Pirish, you're able to take it, also Metzia, Basur Bana Al Siyayin Nesech. So there's two issues over here. There's a Choshen Mishpat Dikadin and there's a Yeredeya Dikadin. The Choshen Mishpat Dikadin is Dine Mominis. is an aveda, can you keep it? And then there's the Yoredei Tikadin. What's the din about Yayin Esech? So it's saying regarding Cheshimish, but you could take it. Regarding Yayin Esech, it's Asa Bahana. The Gemara is going to ask the obvious question. So what am I taking it for? If it's Asa Bahana and I can't use it, what am I taking it for? What am I gaining if I can't drink it? If Yisrael gives a siman, then it'd be permitted to drink. L'moitza to the one who found it. In other words, if Yisrael comes along and gives a siman that it was his, right? It's still mutar. Since it was Rav Canaan, we're going to say that it was miyayish. But nonetheless, if he says it his, so now the Yaredei Tikadin goes off, and he's able to drink the wine, and he's able to drink the wine. Look at Rashi. Bo Yisrael v'nas and simin yotzis misafik yayin kananim. It leaves the suffix of yayin kananim umuteres b'shtiya lemoitza. The kivin the ruba kananim nisyaishu habaylim. The Baal gave up hope. What Heshi asked the other day, what happens? This guy shows up and says, "That's my wine." And, okay, but he asked to buy Shlishal Yom. This is the guy gave up hope, Hesh. And it's not necessarily him. Once the guy gives up hope, we're going to see, if you want to go to Fnei Mishur Sadin, you can go to Fnei Mishur Sadin. But right now, the guy gave up hope. All this Jew did was it took the shaila of Yayin Esech off. That's what he did. And now you'll be able to drink it. Now, it said this din about Roiv, correct? Kiman, Reb Shimon Elazar. Now we can be patient from this. Shema Mina, Kikam Reb Shimon Elazar, B'Roiv Kananim. The reason why it was mutter was why? Because it was Rav Kananim. That's why it was mutter mishum Metzia. Aval Rav Yisrael loy. Rav Yisrael, I would say that what? Let's be pasha the shaila that in the Choshen Mishpat it still would be chayiv lahakris. Chayiv to call it out. Says more loy. The olam aim lach. I'll tell you, Reb Shimon Elazar. I feel Rav Yisrael nami kamar. He even said his din that hariyel shaloi Rav Yisrael. Rav Asi sabala kavasi bechada. Rav Asi, who said this din, he held like him in one din. Right? He held like him, Baroiv. He held like them, Baroiv Kananim, but he disagreed by Rav Yisrael. Reb Shimon Elazar could be, he says, I feel Rav Yisrael, Hariyel Shaloi. Rav Asi said no. Rav Asi said, Baroiv Kananim, yes, Baroiv Yisrael, not. And I guess he had people to back him up because he's an Amayra. But you can't be paishet the shaila of Shitas of Shimon. Again, we got into this whole discussion. What is Shitas of Shimon Elazar? And we're constantly trying to figure it out. And so far, we have no raya what he holds B'Roiv Yisrael. B'Roiv Kananim, yeah. B'Roiv Yisrael, we don't know. Before a Jew comes along and designates this as kosher wine, and you say it's asa b'hana, but it's mutam b'shum metzia, muteres b'shum metzia l'may hilchasa. What are you going to use it for? What can you use it for? Ravashi l'kankani, you can use the barrel. The wine is asa b'hana, but you can use the barrel, right? You'll be able to use the barrel. That's the chiddush over here. Ahu Gavra, there was this individual, the Ashkich Arba Zuze, the Tsairi Besadina. There was this individual he found 4 zuz, and it was tied up in a kerchief. Bishadu Binor Biron, and it was thrown into Nor Biron. You think that what? That I would say Hariel Shaloi, the guy who founds it. I would say Hariel Shaloi. And that's why there's the Gemara. Asla Kamed the Rabbi Yehuda came in front of the great Rabbi Yehuda Malay, Zil Achres, go call it out. Go call it out. You can't keep it. Fred the Gemara was Zuta Shal Yam who? It's Zuta Shal Yam. We said even it was Miyayesh, guys. It's Zuta Shal Yam L'chayra. It's what? It's muta. So how can you say Chayiv L'Hachriz? Shiny no Birin. Birin's different. Keeping the Miskal, since there are a lot of takolos, there seems to be a lot of nets and dams that they would go ahead and dam up this river. Lo Miyayesh. You're not Miyayesh. In other words, chances are that it fell in, you can find it. Chances are that it fell in, you could find it because it'll get stuck, and it's the river flowing, it'll get stuck on something, on some type of net or some type of dam. It's Roiv Kananim, and nonetheless, we said Chayiv L'Hachriz, Shema Mina, Ein Alach Reb Shimon Elazar. One of the shilas is Alach like Reb Shimon Elazar or not? So Shema Mina, despite the fact that around the river Biron is Roiv Kananim, nonetheless, Chayiv L'Hachriz. So the halach is not like Reb Shimon Elazar. Shiny nor biron, the Yisrael sachrule, the Yisrael karule. It seems the workers around there who would work the nets and the dams were Jews. So therefore, the guy doesn't give up hope because who's going to find it? Jews. Even the Yisrael sachrule, aimim Yisrael nachol. Since it's Yisrael that they dig it up, so they make the nets. So we'll say that it fell from that Jew. The Kivin Yisrael karule la miyayish. And since the Yisrael will be the one who, I guess, again, digging it up, they're doing something, they're working over there, they're not miyayish. But einachinami, it's nothing to do, Rev Kenzain Rev Kananim, right? You would be miyayish, but over here it's not Rev Kananim. Even if it is Rev Kananim, around this area is not Rev Kananim. Around this area, what is Jews? Rabbi Yehuda Havi Shakal v'Azl Basri de Mashmuel. Rabbi Yehuda was going after his Rebbe Shmuel. B'Shuka de Beit Daisa. He was walking in the shuk where they would go ahead and make grain. They would crush wheat. Amalei. So Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel Matzah Kan Arnik. If you found a wallet in this place, Mahu. So Amalei Hari El Shaloi. Boy Yisrael v'Nosim Basimin Mahu. What happened to the Jew gives a simin? Amalei Chayv LaHachzer. Be Chayv to return it. Read the Gemara Tarti. That you just contradicted yourself. You told me if you found it Hari El Shaloi. Now you're telling me if a Jew gives a simin, right? It's you return it. That seems to be counterintuitive. Amalei. So Shmuel told him l'fnei b'shuras hadin. I'm going to return it to go l'fnei b'shuras hadin. So Hesh, in answer to your question, Hesh, answer your question. It's really yours. It's really yours. And guys, miyayish, you can keep it, but you want to go up and above board. You want to do the right thing, Harold. You give it back. That's l'fnei b'shuras hadin. It's yours. Hariel Shaloi. Of course, this is a place where you have a majority of people, and the person's going to be Yayish. But the guy comes and gives a simon. He found these donkeys in the midbar. They were lost for 12 months. Now you assume after 12 months, the owner gave up hope. This is also very good. This week's parsha. Shalom Melech lost the donkeys, right? So he went ahead and he found it after 12 months. 12 months is a long time. The Kohen gave a pope. He returned it anyway. And the flame b'shur said in. Rabbi Havi Shakal v'Ozl Basri de Rav Nachman. Rabbi was going after Rav Nachman b'Shuka de Goldoi in the marketplace of the leather workers. Be'imri la others say b'Shuka de Rabbanon, the Shuka of the Chachamim. Amalei Matzah Kananiki Mahu. Amalei Ariel Shaloi. Boy Yisrael v'Nasim Basimin Mahu. Amalei Ariel Shaloi. I v'lei Oimid v'Tzavach. Right? He's screaming. So Nasa Kitzavach al Beisay Shenafal. It's like screaming on his house that fell. Or a ship that sunk. Again. Ahu Dayoy, there was this bird. The Shakal Bisra Bishuka took some basar in the street. The Shadi Bitsanisa, and he threw into a palm tree. The Bay by Marion in that place by Marion. Us to commit that by Amalezi Shakal Nashkal. Go take it. Right? The city is Rabbi Yisrael, and he said Hariel Shaloi. Shema mina halach Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar afilu b'Rabbi Yisrael. Shani dayoy the kesuta shel yam dami. If he picked it up, right? If he picked it up, the person might, it's like suta shel yam. So even if the guy says, I want it, we don't listen. So the Choshen Mishpat Tikadin is Hariel Shaloi. What about the Yeridei Tikadin? Rav Basa Shenesalim and Ayin Asa. If guys, you ever see a chicken? You go buy a chicken, it's got a plumber on it, that little piece of metal stuck to the wing. Trust me. Why? Because that's basa shenes alim me'ayin, was hidden from the eye. So what that plumber does, it tells you that that's kosher. So you got a problem over here. This bird took the meat, flew away. Good, it dropped it over there. But the bottom line is at the time it was there, it was basa shenes alim me'ayin. It was basa shenes alim me'ayin. Says Gemara, ba'oimei veru. Ba'oimei, you stood and you saw it. The story was told to me, I don't know, many, many years ago by a girl in my class. It happened to her brother. Her brother was on a plane, and he was coming to America from Eretz Yisrael, and he was very, very tired. He was very, very tired, and he told the guy sitting next to him, if I fall asleep and they bring a sandwich, please leave the sandwich because I'm very, very tired. Anyway, the guy woke him up, but they brought the sandwich. The guy woke him up. he went up and he went to wash. And he went to wash his hands, and then he realized that he was gone that time. There was no one watching a sandwich. It was Basa Shen Salim and Ayin. He sat down and he didn't eat it. And the guy said to him, "Why aren't you eating?" He goes, "I'm not hungry." He goes, "1 second, you told me you're hungry. You told me to wake you up." He goes, "I'm just not hungry." So he goes, "So why don't you eat?" So he told him the halacha. And the guy said, "Your God's the true God." Because I was always wondering what kosher meat tastes like. So when you got up, I went ahead, I took some of your meat out, and I put some of my meat in. You hear Maisa, guys? You hear Maisa? You keep halacha? You keep halacha. You hear this? Keep halacha. Your God is the true God. Not only keep halacha, he was Mekadeshem Shemayim. He was Mekadeshem Shemayim at that moment. Maisa Shahaya. Maisa Shahaya. Amazing. Okay, says the Gemara Vaita. Reb Chanina Matzah Gedi Shachat Ben Tferi L'Sipurei. Reb Chanina found a goat geschachten between the town of Tferi and Sipurei, b'tiru uloi, and he matted it to eat. Amar Rav Ami, hitiru uloi mishum Metzia, Reb Shimon ben Elazar, he matted it, right? He matted us Metzia to keep it like Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Again, the Choshen Mishpat Tikadin, and I guess it was Roiv Yisrael, and Mishum Shchita Kerebi Chanina B'nai Shal B'yaseg Lili, and the Yeridei Tikadin, he matted als Rabbi Chanina ben Rabbi Chanina, son of Rabbi Yaseg Lili, the Tanya. Aisha of the Loi Gedio, a person lost his goats, the Tanya Golim was chickens, V'alach u'matzim shchutim, we found them geschachten, Rabbi Yehuda Oyser, Rabbi Chanina ben Rabbi Yaseg Lili mater. So therefore, the heter for eating the Yeridei was the heter of Rabbi Chanina. Amar Rebbe, near in Divrei Rabbi Yehuda kishematzim ba'ashpa. If you find the chickens or the goats in the garbage dump, chances are it's nevela, and that's why they're thrown out there, and therefore it's usher. If you find it in the house, if you find it in the house, if you look at Tosfos, guys, shematzim ba'ashpa, terakam b'dechulin mefarish near in Divrei Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Chanina kishematzim ba'ashpa shebeshuk. If you find them in the communal garbage dump, shaf Rabbi Chanina like polig alaha el ba'ashpa shebebayis in the house, u'b'uvd dehacha. So even in the ashba in the house, they'll say it's kosher. It's kosher. So therefore, the hacha shematzim b'derech b'loy ashba, and here we found it on the road. Havika ashba shebebayis. It's like the ashba in the house, and just like the ashba in the house, Reb Chanina says it's kosher. Who adin if you find it on the road, it's kosher. Again, you're speaking about a slaughtered animal. Goyim usually don't slaughter animals, guys. The only shaila here is whether it's nevela or not, whether it's a good shchita or not. That's the shaila. Baita. Midehitiru mishum shchitas ruba Yisrael nenu shmamina alach Reb Shimon ben Elazar afila b'Rav Yisrael. Amar Rava Rav Kananim says there's no raya. Says Rava it was Rav Kananim b'Rav Tafche Yisrael. Most of the people were Canaanim, but the majority of the butchers were Jewish. Avami Ashkech Pargiois Shchutois, he found these pigeons that were geschachten bein tfer litzipuri. Us the kameder Avasi, v'imila the kameder B'Yochanan, v'imila be'midrasha, exactly where the shaila was asked, the individuals on the base medrash. V'yamalei zil shol kol nafshcha, go take it for yourself. You can keep it. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka Ashkech Kibura. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka, he found Kibura. The Ozlibe as Luve. So what did he find? He found Kabura. He found this like balls of wool, spun wool for nets. Right? He found it, and that the Azlibe Azluye was speaking about net makers. Again, that Maisa happened. They said, go take it for yourself. Okay, Be'ez Hashem. I plan to dive in with seeking.